Chosen one. They didn't know who you were. They didn't understand, saw what you carried. They mistook your silence for weakness. They thought your isolation meant abandonment. But what they failed to see is that you were never alone. You were being preserved, hidden, covered. While they plotted against you, heaven was preparing a response. Not because you needed revenge, but because your name was sealed in purpose. They tried to end you. They threw dirt on your name. They laughed when you struggled. They celebrated your fall. They mocked your efforts. They whispered lies. They used your vulnerability as fuel for their pride. But chosen one, what they didn't know is that the very pit they dug for you became their grave of exposure. What was meant to bury you only revealed what was truly in them. Before we go deeper into this word, watch this video all the way through. Let the truth sink into your spirit and awaken what the enemy tried to suffocate. And when your heart aligns with this message, write your warmest wishes and 144 in the comments below. This is how we energize the atmosphere. This is how we tell the universe, the chosen are rising. Because you didn't just survive. You outlived what was sent to destroy you. And now, God is not only lifting you, He's handling every force that tried to pull you down. This is not about ego. This is not about vengeance. This is divine closure. Now, chosen one, show your light by liking this video and subscribe to the channel. And let's step into this together. There are things you didn't even know they said behind your back. Words spoken to delay your destiny. Actions taken to discredit your journey. Manipulation masked as concern. Jealousy dressed up as guidance. Their hands were dirty, but their smiles were clean. And for a while, you couldn't tell the difference. You called them friend, you trusted them with your pain. You opened the door and let them into your inner sanctuary. But all the while, they were looking for your cracks. And when they found them, they didn't help you heal. They used them to justify why you didn't deserve to rise. But God was watching. Not just their actions, their intentions. And while they were busy studying how to stop you, God was orchestrating how to elevate you. That's why things began to fall apart. That's why certain relationships suddenly shifted. Why you couldn't explain why you felt drained around them. Your spirit knew what your mind couldn't see. You were under attack. Not physically, spiritually. And the most dangerous thing about it? It didn't look like war. It looked like love. It looked like loyalty. It looked like closeness. But behind the curtain, it was sabotage, energy leeches, jealous hearts, insecure souls who couldn't understand how someone like you still had the courage to rise, to smile, to believe despite everything. So they tried to end it. Tried to silence your voice, break your vision, distort your image, block your path. But chosen one, hear this now. They failed. Every attempt to destroy you only brought more attention to your anointing. Every lie only exposed their own spirit. Every attack sharpened your discernment. And now, we've entered the moment they never expected, the reversal. This is where God steps in and says, enough. Where the same people who tried to end your story will be forced to watch your story unfold without access. Where what they did in the dark will be brought into light, not for shame, but for separation. Because God is removing you from every space that tolerated your suffering, disrespected your growth, or tried to minimize your value. Chosen one, you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. And sometimes, that standing out means standing alone. But even in the aloneness, you were never without heaven. You were never without protection. You were never without purpose. And now every weapon formed against you is turning on its maker. The people who laughed, they're about to watch you rise. The people who plotted, they're about to see it backfire. The people who said you wouldn't make it, they're about to witness what favor really looks like. Not because you fought back, but because you kept walking. You didn't stop. You didn't bow. You didn't become like them. You stayed pure. You stayed chosen. And God takes that personally. So what's happening now is not karma. It's consequence. Divine consequence. And while you don't rejoice in their downfall, you stand firm in your deliverance. Because God is not just vindicating you, He's elevating you. And the people who tried to silence you will have no choice but to hear the sound of your breakthrough. Stay grounded. Stay grateful. The tables are not turning. They've already turned. The shift has already begun. And it's not just happening around you. It's happening in you. They tried to mark your end, but instead, they marked your beginning. They declared your downfall, but in doing so, they revealed their own foundation was built on insecurity. You were never their enemy, but your light exposed their darkness. Your resilience reminded them of everything they buried. Your presence made their hidden envy bubble to the surface. They didn't attack you because you were wrong. They attacked you because you were right. Right about your path. Right about your calling. Right about the vibration that you carry, one that can't be faked, copied, or dimmed. And the truth is, they never had the power to end you. They only had the illusion of control. The real authority was always spiritual, and God never gave them access to the part of you that was eternal. They could tamper with your name, but not your destiny. They could delay the blessing, but not deny it. They could stir confusion, but they couldn't kill your calling. That calling was sealed before you were ever hurt, before you were ever betrayed, before they ever tried to bury you. And now, the spiritual courtroom has ruled. The verdict is in. God is ending them, not in cruelty, but in truth. He's ending the cycle they kept spinning to drain you. He's ending the false access they had to your life. He's ending the season where they could mock you and still benefit from your presence. He's ending the illusion that they were above you. And the most poetic part? You didn't have to raise your voice. You didn't have to retaliate. You didn't have to defend yourself. You just had to keep walking, keep healing, keep holding your peace while heaven fought the battle behind the scenes. And now, you'll watch things unfold in divine order, not because you forced it, but because you were faithful. This is your confirmation. You're being vindicated by elevation. You'll see their actions start to cost them. Their false narratives will collapse. The circles they tried to keep you out of will start closing in on them. And it won't be your doing. It'll be the law of heaven rebalancing itself. For every lie, there will be light. For every seed of jealousy they planted, a harvest of consequence will bloom. And no, you won't feel joy in their fall, but you will feel peace, because you'll finally understand that protection doesn't always look like walls. Sometimes it looks like removal. God removed you because He heard conversations you never did. He saw the intentions behind their support. He saw the energy behind their smiles. He knew their loyalty was conditional. And that's why He ended what you were still trying to hold together. You didn't lose anything. You were rescued. And now, your life is rising from the ashes of their betrayal. Now your glow is intensifying because you no longer sit at tables built on manipulation. Now your clarity is sharp because confusion no longer whispers in your ear. The people who once had access to your low moments will now watch from afar as you elevate beyond the places they tried to trap you in. And it's not just personal, it's prophetic. Everything they tried to delay will now come in double speed. Everything they tried to curse will now turn into confirmation. Everything they tried to end will become the proof that you were chosen from the start. And don't be surprised when they come back, not to apologize, but to act like nothing happened. But by then, you'll be so elevated, their energy won't even reach you. This is what happens when the divine flips the script. When the ones who dug pits fall into them. When the chosen one they tried to destroy becomes the standard. The atmosphere shifts. The rooms change. The energy realigns. You're no longer on defense. You're on display. Not for vanity, but as evidence. Evidence that God still restores. Evidence that divine justice is real. Evidence that what was sent to kill you actually gave birth to your next chapter. So walk into this next season fully aware. Not everyone deserves to witness your harvest. Some were only meant to test your soil. And once their part was done, God ended their role in your story. Not because you were bitter, but because He's better. There's something sacred about the way God handles your enemies. He doesn't just remove them, He reveals them. And sometimes that's more painful than the betrayal itself. Because before He ends their assignment in your life, He lets you see it. He opens your eyes to what your spirit already knew. He allows the masks to fall, not to hurt you, but to prepare you. Because when you can finally see them for who they are, you'll never again lower your vibration to meet them where they pretend to be. Chosen one, this exposure wasn't for revenge. It was for release. God couldn't elevate you while you were still emotionally tied to the same people preying on your delay. He couldn't pour new oil into a cup with cracks. So He had to show you what was leaking your energy. What was siphoning your strength? Who was smiling at your wins but secretly hoping you'd fall apart before the finish line? They didn't know your heart. They just studied your habits. They didn't respect your growth. They just tolerated your presence. They didn't cheer you on. They watched you, hoping you'd get tired. But you didn't. You outlasted their expectations. You outgrew their projections. You outshined the shadows they tried to keep you in. And now, they don't know what to do with you. Because you're not bitter, but you're better. You're not vengeful, but you're elevated. You're not explaining anymore, because your life is doing all the talking. This is divine reversal. A holy flipping of the script. The ones who tried to bury you are now being buried in their own energy. The lies they spread are echoing back at them. The slander is circling around their own name. Not because you wished for their fall, but because they built their elevation on your pain, and God doesn't bless that. You were silent, but heaven was speaking. You were still, but angels were moving. You were patient, but the Spirit was working. And now, justice is arriving, not just in your favor, but in full view. Everyone will see it, not just the ones who doubted you, but the ones who watched and said nothing. The ones who had the power to correct the narrative but chose comfort over truth. The ones who stayed close enough to benefit from your glow, but distant enough to deny your name when it got uncomfortable. Chosen one, this is more than elevation. This is separation. You're no longer being lifted in the presence of your enemies just to prove a point. You're being protected from the access that once wounded you. God isn't preparing a table to impress them. He's preparing a table because you've earned the seat. Through integrity, through sacrifice, through obedience. They laughed when you were crying. They rolled their eyes when you were building. They counted you out when you were just beginning. And now, their hearts are disturbed because you didn't break. Your resilience scares them. Your silence confuses them. Your elevation exposes them. Because you weren't supposed to come back from that. You weren't supposed to still be creating. You weren't supposed to still be glowing. But here you are, full of light, dripping in purpose, surrounded by grace. And while you're walking into your next, God is closing their chapter in your story. Not because you hate them, but because you're no longer available to be mistreated by them. You're no longer trying to fix what broke you. You're no longer explaining what only the Spirit can discern. You're no longer trying to convince people to see your worth, because now you know who you are. And that knowing, that divine certainty, is your protection. So if you felt isolated, know this. You're not being punished. You're being preserved. Because where you're going, emotional entanglements can't follow. Loose ties must be cut. Unclean intentions must be burned away. That's why God is ending what you never had the strength to walk away from. He's ending the attachments. He's ending the soul ties. He's ending the cycles that kept bringing their energy back into your space. And He's not asking your permission. Because He heard what they said when you weren't around. He saw how they celebrated your struggle. He watched how they tried to copy your path while mocking your pain. And now the heavens have ruled. Enough is enough. This is not just protection. This is prophetic positioning. You're being placed in rooms where jealousy can't breathe, where your light is not just seen, it's respected, where your ideas are not stolen, they're supported, where your energy is not drained, it's revered. You're no longer climbing your way in. You are the door. You're no longer chasing connection. You are the alignment. You're no longer defending your name. You are the evidence, and the people who tried to end you, they're being silenced by the sound of your becoming. You're not the same person they tried to destroy. That version of you doesn't even exist anymore. They aimed at the old you, the vulnerable you, the unsure you, the broken you. But they didn't account for what you would become after the fire. They didn't consider that the pain would awaken you, that the betrayal would purify you, that the storm would sharpen your gifts. They underestimated your process because they never saw your promise. And now you've crossed a line in the Spirit, a threshold that cannot be reversed. What God is doing for you now is permanent, irreversible, protected, guarded by divine law. This is no longer a recovery season. It's a release season, a release of favor, of clarity, of wealth, of healing, of impact. And the same people who tried to bury you in silence, they're now suffocating in their own noise because they spoke curses over you, and now they're being haunted by the reality that it didn't work. What they feared the most is happening before their eyes. You're rising anyway, and you're not rising with resentment. You're not rising to prove a point. You're not rising for applause. You're rising because it's your time, because heaven cleared the path, because your name has already been etched into the next chapter, because the spiritual realm has already shifted in your favor. This is your elevation era, and it's not built on hype. It's built on healing. Every tear you cried in private is now becoming fuel for what you'll birth in public. Every no you received was God's way of saying, "Not yet. I have something better." Every time you were overlooked, heaven took notes. Every door they slammed in your face is now opening on your terms. And the best part? You no longer need those doors, because you've become the door, the access point, the portal, the pathway. People will now come to you for what they once mocked you for. They will try to mirror what they once tried to mute. But it's too late. They had access to you before the oil started flowing. Now that the oil is sacred, so is your distance. You're not being rude, you're being repositioned. You're not holding grudges, you're holding standards. God didn't elevate you just to put you on display. He elevated you to separate you, to keep your soil protected, to keep your harvest untouched, to make sure the people who tried to sabotage you aren't able to taste the fruit of your obedience. They didn't sow the tears, they won't reap the victory. And now that God is ending what was sent to end you, you'll feel something unfamiliar. Space. Space in your spirit. Space in your schedule. Space in your atmosphere. That's not emptiness. That's the clearing. You're being cleared of toxic attachments, cleared of mental residue, cleared of emotional clutter, cleared of the weight of having to explain your soul to people who never tried to understand it. Because your presence is valuable now, and heaven is managing your availability. Not everyone can call you anymore. Not everyone gets a response. Not everyone deserves to sit at your table. The energy that once drained you now repels you. The conversations that once intrigued you now bore you. The people who once had power over you now feel invisible. Because your spirit has shifted. Your vibration has ascended. And once you rise, you cannot unrise. And as for those who tried to drag you back down, God is ending their influence. God is ending their access. God is ending their chapter. Not because you asked for it, but because He loves you too much to let you be touched again by hands that tried to break you. Because He knows your heart. He knows you would have given them another chance. You would have welcomed them back in. You would have explained yourself one more time. So He didn't ask. He just acted. Because divine protection doesn't always feel like comfort. Sometimes it feels like loss. But chosen one, this is not loss. This is liberation. You are being loosed from everything that kept you small. Everything that made you question your voice. Everything that kept you apologizing for your light. They couldn't end you because God already authored you. And now the author has picked up the pen again. This next part of your story will not be co-written by those who betrayed you. Their fingerprints don't belong on your future. Their energy doesn't qualify for your breakthrough. Their names will not be attached to your testimony. Because when they tried to end you, they revealed themselves. And now that God is ending them, He's revealing you. The real you. The anointed you. The unshakable you. The chosen you. So breathe deep. Stand tall. Walk forward. What once wounded you has now been turned into wisdom. And what once broke you has become your breakthrough. You're not here by accident. You're not standing in this moment by chance. You were carried. You were covered. You were chosen. And what they tried to bury has now become a garden of undeniable evidence. You are living proof that no weapon formed against you could prosper. Not because the weapon never came, but because it had no authority. Let that sink in. It had no authority. It bruised you, yes. It slowed you down, yes. But it couldn't take you out, because before their plans were even formed, God had already designed the outcome. And this version of you, the one they tried to break, has now risen with more clarity, more strength, more wisdom, and more fire than ever before. This is why your presence is unsettling to those who tried to destroy you. They're confused, not because you're loud, but because you're still here. They swore you'd fold. They thought you'd disappear. They were certain your spirit would wither under the pressure they applied. But instead, it evolved. Now, they don't recognize you. And that's the point. Because you've been transformed by the very thing they used to try and trap you. You are no longer trying to be understood. You are no longer explaining your growth. You are no longer overextending for people who chose to misunderstand your mission. The old version of you craved approval. This version craves alignment. The old version of you sought validation. This version walks with confirmation. The old version of you made room for everyone. This version only makes room for God's instructions. That's the difference, and that's why they're uncomfortable. Because now, your presence convicts them. Your boundaries expose their intentions. Your elevation disturbs their complacency. And you're not even trying to prove anything. You're just being. And it's in that being, in that divine, unapologetic, aligned version of yourself, that the world is beginning to shift around you. Doors are opening without you knocking. Conversations are shifting without you speaking. Connections are forming without you chasing. Because when the chosen one walks in their assignment, heaven makes sure the earth responds. And because of that truth, you're no longer trying to get in rooms. Rooms are being built around your energy. Opportunities are being shaped by your presence. People are being drawn to the clarity you carry. You're not knocking on doors. They're opening from the inside because your name was already on them in the spirit. You see, when God ends what tried to end you, He doesn't just elevate you. He establishes you. He plants your feet in rooms you didn't even pray for. He magnifies your voice in ways you never expected. He positions you to become a lighthouse for others who were also buried and forgotten. And here's the truth you need to hold close. You didn't just survive to prove them wrong. You survived to prove that your purpose is stronger than their plots. Your elevation is not revenge. Your clarity is not arrogance. Your success is not spite. It's evidence. Evidence that divine justice exists. Evidence that heaven moves in silence. Evidence that God finishes what He starts, even when the world tries to interrupt. This is why your peace now feels different. Why certain people can't reach you anymore. Why you no longer feel the need to explain your no. Because your identity has been reclaimed. Your soul has been unlocked. And your future has been secured. And the ones who tried to sabotage it, they're now being dealt with by the same force they mocked. God's hand. You don't have to watch. You don't have to announce it. You don't even have to react. Because when heaven moves, it doesn't seek attention, it seeks alignment. Let them wonder how you made it. Let them whisper about how you're still rising. Let them try to copy the light they once tried to put out. They won't understand it. Because it was never about understanding. It was about surviving long enough for the truth to speak for itself. And now it is. Your life is speaking. Your peace is speaking. Your glow is speaking. Your elevation is screaming, what you no longer need to say. You were chosen, you were covered, you were preserved, and everything they tried to break only built the version of you that no one can touch now. They tried to stop your life, but all they did was pause their own blessings. Every dart they threw at you has now boomeranged into their atmosphere, not because you asked for revenge, but because the law of energy never lies. What you give returns. What you sow grows. What you send out finds its way back. And they sent out envy. They sent out sabotage. They sent out confusion. And now it's all coming back like a tide, strong, undeniable, and multiplied. Not because you cast judgment, but because you stayed pure. You didn't retaliate. You didn't expose them. You didn't fight dirty. You just stood still, held your peace, and let God collect the pieces of your broken heart. And now, the same divine hand that rebuilt you is dismantling everything that was built on lies in the background. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because, chosen one, you're going to see it. You're going to witness the unraveling. You're going to watch as the ones who plotted quietly start to suffer loudly. And while your spirit may feel compassion, your soul will feel relief. Because you'll finally realize what it looks like when God finishes what people tried to prevent. You'll notice that you're no longer emotionally tethered, no longer tied to the drama, no longer tempted to shrink, no longer reaching back to what's been spiritually buried. The cords have been cut. The cycle is done. And the air around you? It's cleaner now. This is why your energy has been shifting, why rest feels different, why distractions feel louder. Because when your destiny draws near, everything either aligns with you or leaves. And this Saturday is going to clarify that. You'll begin to see what belongs and what burdens, what elevates and what drains, who sees your light and who was just hiding in the shadows of your glow. And in that clarity, you won't just protect your peace, you'll prioritize your purpose. You won't chase comfort, you'll choose calling. You won't seek company, you'll crave confirmation. Because the you that's emerging now isn't hungry for validation. You're not building for attention. You're building because God gave you vision, and that vision demands space. Sacred space, clean space, protected space. So if people walk away, let them. If doors close, bless them. If silence enters, honor it. You are not in the business of forcing what no longer fits. You've outgrown the spaces they tried to keep you trapped in. You've graduated from the roles they tried to cast you in. You are no longer their emotional mirror. You're not their fixer. You're not their savior. You're not their source. You are a vessel of divine clarity. And because of that, your atmosphere must be pure. Your conversations must carry depth. Your spaces must feel clean. Your thoughts must echo truth. And your presence must be guarded, not from fear, but from reverence. You've become sacred ground, a walking testimony, a soul that made it through what was designed to kill its light, and didn't just survive, but expanded. And now that God has ended the leeches, the cycles, the watchers, the takers, you will finally start to notice what it feels like to be unbothered, truly untouchable, not arrogant, but anointed. You'll feel the freedom of not checking your energy around people, the freedom of walking into rooms without anxiety, the freedom of knowing your value doesn't need to be explained, It speaks. Because the people who once tried to ruin you, they underestimated something they could never calculate. Your favor. They thought favor meant fame. They thought favor meant money. But favor is something deeper. Favor is what kept your name intact. Favor is what blocked what was meant to break you. Favor is what made angels move while you slept. Favor is why you still shine, even after the storm. And now, the ones who underestimated it are watching it work. They're watching your presence grow louder. They're watching your impact stretch wider. They're watching the very things they tried to kill bloom before their eyes. And that's the justice of God. Not loud, not showy, but undeniable.